What is up, DTube Steam blockchain? So today I want to talk a little bit about training artificial intelligence and organize data. So computers, smartphones, devices, tech devices basically, they are now going to move into the next phase where it's mainly just going to be about organized data and earn tokens from it. So for example, now we have a service that my friend told me about called Affect AI, which is basically you are basically training AI on data sets. And in many ways you can also say, even though we don't use AI right now in a lot of content curation, but in many ways in the future the AI can look at this, what humans curate, and it can learn. So in a way we're sort of preparing for AI in terms of we are already creating data sets. For example, some new piece of data gets created, maybe someone did a video, and it goes into the computer, and then humans or robots look at that, and then they curate it, or they put it in the right place, they tag it, they comment on it. So we just have this data flow, and it's just going to be more efficient. So you have new data being created, new data being organized. Something that Affect AI now also stepping up with basically allow companies to get basically data sets which both can be trained by humans and AI eventually. And it's really interesting. Something that a person really has to think a little bit deeper on, maybe, what it means. But it's a very interesting time, because the faster you can organize data, the better. The faster everyone can get what they want. The faster, that's a great way of summarizing it. The faster you can organize data, the faster literally everyone gets what they want. Some want tokens because they want something else, but some people want some piece of content, but it's all just virtual. It's all just data flowing around in the cloud. It's just on the screen, and it gets better and better and better and better all the time, which is very interesting to see. Which means eventually humans going to have to do less and less and less and less, because the better the data sets become, the more it learns about what people want. And of course this can also get updated in specific times. Maybe people create some specific data and then the algo sort of learns, but it's going to become pretty impressive. It's already very, very impressive, because it gets into this philosophical space, I would say, eventually, where you have some value that you can trade, and then when you have a lot of this, it really becomes philosophical of where is this value, where should it best be traded, and all of this. And do we need 1 billion services? Can't we all use the same? Or eventually the system that can create the most value, that's what everyone is gonna use, which is interesting. So humans, the next couple of years, are gonna train AI more and more and more and more, And eventually a lot of those tasks that humans did, it's not going to be, a human won't forever train AI, because eventually it's going to be so intelligent that it's fine. It can do whatever the human asked for. And the interesting thing about humans is, I mean, for an AI, what we humans do with like why we're so excited about specific pieces of data is, of course, because, well, usually it comes down to, well, you can sort of trade it for something else, right? But for the AI, but that may be something that person do once a day or something like that. Imagine how much value the AI can create just in an hour. It gets really, really interesting. How much value can it create in 24 hours? Really, it gets really, really interesting. Because then it's not about, eventually it doesn't become about how productive you are. Humans are in many ways moving away from being a donkey. And what I mean when I say be a donkey is that humans have thought for a long time that they have to do something always. But eventually that's probably not going to be the case, because humans in many ways already is like a machine in terms of their habits and their routines and what they're doing from a day-to-day basis. And every day that goes by, the AI can see patterns and routines, and it can learn. It's called deep learn, and it's just gonna get sharper at this. It's really, really interesting time. This is actually something that is amazing, to be honest, because it really creates an effect where humans can pursue their interest, which is quite interesting. So it might sound boring for some people, organized data and all of this, and it's fine. Humans are going to do it for a short time, and then training AI with Effect AI and services like that popping up, and then the AI is eventually going to do that probably by itself. If it's just about organizing data and do it faster, an AI eventually is going to do that much faster than a human can do it. So then a human is not going to do that at all. Which is, yeah, it's interesting, it's new, and it's going to change internet in many ways. There's not going to be any need for use hundreds of apps as many people are doing right now. They can probably just use one app and you have everything already right there. Because right now we have a lot of complicated interfaces, and it doesn't really, there's not like a universal law that it has to be complicated, that the user interface has to be complicated. What it all boils down to, that I've talked about a lot in the past, is access. Permissionless systems, open systems. So if you create an open internet, people can build stuff on top of it, websites, apps. And we've had this time where a lot of stuff hasn't been open. Hardware hasn't been open. The software hasn't been open. It's been closed. App stores and Play stores and all this, it has been sort of closed. Yes, you have to, like, it's not trustless. It's not permissionless. It is still that you have to send something in, and you need to be approved by a human. Where eventually it's just going to work. So, and then people are going to be able to invent stuff, be able to experiment themselves without asking for authority to experiment with building hardware devices, software devices. This is of course something that's already going on. It's just that it's just going to speed up, especially it's going to speed up the next 5 years when humans are going to start training AI with data sets, with services like Effect AI, or in the future SingularityNet. They're also jumping into the same sort of field. And what humans are doing right now with their devices is, many people are sort of unconscious about it, but what they mainly are doing is measuring data, and they're tweaking their habits a little bit day by day. And this is something that usually goes on unconscious, but everyone is sort of measuring data, measuring value, and sort of micro tweaks their habits on a daily basis. And eventually we have the best energy machine, because the smartphone is an energy machine. And it went from mechanical device. If you just go and look at smartphones and many MP3 players and all kinds of physical gadgets that humans used in technology in the past that was mainly mechanical, now it's just moving to a screen. If you go look at new smartphones, you can see that almost every phone just has a screen now. They all look the same. You can almost like use a hologram or something like that. You barely even need the interface. You just need a way to transmit data using internet. You need some kind of connection. You need some access connection, right? But there's nothing that says that you need a screen for it. But it's the smartphone basically moving from mechanical device to an energy machine, to an efficient energy machine. And if a person really pays attention a lot, be very attentive, they're going to realize, wait a sec, looking at your habits, you can see that, yeah, eventually the stuff that humans doing on a daily basis, they can do it in smaller and smaller form for every day that goes. They need less resources and energy to do the same amount of work. And it gets kind of interesting, because people can sort of start to see it this as, well, new data that's being created. For example, in the beginning, 10 years ago, a photo was something huge. Some text article, it was kind of huge. But right now, with the level of abundance you have with it, it's not really a big deal anymore. Like, people are starting to move on to other things as audio, video, which is just more natural content that just flows more. And people see, yeah, I can take a photo, but there's really no point. There's not that big point of it anymore. It's just now, how can we organize data as fast as possible, and how can we just try to transmit the most value in terms of data as quickly as possible, and how can we, verify that by reward it with a token or something like that. And eventually, this is something also that I've been considering. What people usually look at net worth at the moment is going to sort of shift to memory worth in some ways, but then eventually that's also going to be an old concept. But what I mean is, net worth, it was usually when it was physical value, like, oh, this person has this net worth or something silly like that. But now it's going to move to memory worth in many ways, like, oh, that person has a lot of memory, because it's just memory gathering and organizing that they're doing right now. So, and yeah, sometimes maybe they go transfer value and connect with the physical world, and they do a small little transaction or stuff like that, and something happens in some machine somewhere. But even that is going to go more and more virtual, basically, which is very, very interesting. So it's going to be an opportunity cost to not invest in new technology. It's going to be an opportunity cost to not analyze data and measure data. And it's going to be an opportunity cost to sort of miss out on using video instead of photos. It's going to be an opportunity cost to not go into tokens. It's going to be an opportunity cost to not sort of look at AI. It's going to be an opportunity cost to not be attentive to what is going on with the internet and sort of looking at where that is going. So it's very interesting. And then you also have this thing how technology in many ways is going to become invincible in some ways, in terms of, or it's going to look as it's invincible, because people will be able to send data around without it be so obvious in the physical landscape. And I mean, that's already sort of in many ways how it is. I mean, the little device that you're doing a little thing on is not really like you're taking up a lot of space. When someone is buying a coffee, swiping a little card, I mean, it's already right now, it's pretty invincible, but it's just going to become more natural, flow faster, and become even more as the sort of the trade sort of thing is not something that people is probably not going to consider that much. It's not going to be as huge a thing when it becomes like electricity or running water or something that's just everywhere, because data is basically going to be everywhere. Data wants to be everywhere in some ways, and that data also, if you look at the physical world, I mean, data is sort of everywhere, and that's going to happen with the digital landscape also when you sort of open it up more and decentralize it more, and sort of. And it's also going to be what people want it to be, basically. But the good thing is humans are intelligent, so it's probably going to be pretty intelligent. The stuff that humans are interested in and what they're looking at and all that. There's a lot of silliness, but that's just because sometimes people like to relax. And humans also, in many ways, they are sort of products of their environment. So if there's slow innovation, if there is less little funding that goes down into interesting stuff, then humans, maybe they have massive potential, but it's just that the environment is not really ideal. It doesn't or inspire them to use their human genius. A lot of factor in place here, of course. But next 5 years is going to be a lot of training of artificial intelligence, and make it better at organizing data. And eventually that's going to shift everything. It's going to be cool. Yeah, that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. Have an awesome day, DTube. Have an awesome day, Steam blockchain. Bye-bye.